Hello and welcome to FS Group's very special episode. It's a panel discussion on a very important topic, and that is of health. So, our topic for today is integrating digital wellness and insurance. What is the future of employee well-being and personalized health today? And we've got two very interesting participants, Jasmyne Rana and Mirka Strano. Welcome to the FS Group podcast, guys. I'll open the floor to you guys to introduce yourself.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and speak with you guys. So I am a mental health practitioner. I have been practicing for about 15 years. And along the way, I started branching, as all of us did, into a bit of online work. And that led me to exploring setting up mental health platforms. I'm currently working with Minty, a mental health platform, consulting with them for their setup process. And I'm just passionate about the future of mental health, how it's evolving and how it's changing.
Very good. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Mirka. I'm the Regional Director for Employee Benefits Consulting at Howden for MEA, so Middle East and Africa. So I work with organizations to help them with their health insurance, group life insurance, and obviously designing and implementing their well-being strategies. I'm also very passionate about the well-being in general, but also how digital health is supporting with this.
Perfect. Very good. So you brought definitely the right candidates for this discussion. So that's great. So I think well-being has been bandied about as a term probably in the last, 10, 15 years maybe. And obviously since COVID, mental health has become more important and risen to the fore. So let's probably discuss the definitions for the audience. Let's start with you, Jasmyne. How do you define holistic employee well-being in today's workplace?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it's something that we're seeing is rapidly evolving. I would say in the last few years, but also in the last 10 years, there's been a shift in terms of what we consider is a holistic idea of well-being for employees. So we want to just put it into context that the idea of the workplace was really born out of the industrialist revolution, which was based on hard work, efficiency, fixed hours, and a very hierarchical kind of leadership management. And then what's happened with just cultural changes, political changes, COVID-19, tech advances, is that the entire workplace culture has been transforming. And also some of the work I do is I also train leadership for corporates. And we're seeing a big shift in what we consider a good workplace culture. So it's all starting right from the roots, like how we lead, to how we empower and how much space we create and how much creativity we bring in. And so that is forcing us to think about employee well-being from a very internal mental health perspective too, as well as a work-life balance, as well as a time balance, as well as a fluidity and a convenience balance, as well as inclusion. So suddenly this question has become huge. So, that you just asked, I'll keep addressing it from different angles, but I would say it's become a very human experience now that we're considering it, and less of an efficiency experience.
That's where it's probably started from. Mirka, do you want to add on to the definition and also touch upon how probably it has changed in the recent few years?
Yeah, so I think it has definitely changed. We went from experience, like corporates a few years ago, they would look into well-being and perhaps not have much budget for it because corporates in this part of the world shoulder large costs for health insurance. So sometimes also to be able to fund the rest, it becomes a little bit difficult. So we've gone more from a tick box exercise, more based on education and awareness offered to employees, to a lot more structured solutions, holistic solutions that are actually aimed at not only supporting employees, but also mitigating health risks. Because obviously we see companies shouldering increases in their medical insurance spend. And so companies are becoming a lot more interested into what can we do to mitigate this risk? What can we do to support our employees' lifestyle as well? Because a large majority of the drivers of medical claims in this region are lifestyle illnesses like diabetes, hypertension. And obviously, this is also so related to the mental health. So stress and burnout and how this has an impact on the member's life, but also on their physical health. So I think we're moving towards a situation where holistic well-being actually means integration of well-being in the workplace, not only a tick box exercise, but also how can we make our workplace really supportive of employees' health from an environment perspective, from preventing burnout, from preventing overload. So it's how the workplace can actually become a lot more supportive of this in the daily life and not just as policy level or culture level.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So if you have to actually dig deeper into that, Mirka, so what are the most top 3 pressing trends or challenges when it comes to employee well-being specific to the UAE and perhaps to the broader Middle East? And how are these sort of trends different from the global trends?
Members' lifestyle and how we live in the UAE, we live in a quite specific environment. Like it can be quite warm, so physical activity could be an issue, and that leads to we see the high prevalence of lifestyle illnesses. Obviously, we also live in an environment where we are far away from our families quite often, so there's an element of not having the social networks to support our mental health. I think financial well-being has become a very prevalent topic as well. Budgeting and saving for retirement and all by ourselves and without the support of our social healthcare or welfare system. So these are challenges for people in this part of the world. And I think that from a more of a well-being strategy deployment and development point of view, organizations are struggling with they have all the intention to build amazing programs and to make them work, but then people are really busy. So this is also a place where we work long hours. And so to get the attention of employees and actually get them to focus on their health and put time for it and put themselves first, sometimes it's actually the main issue we face, So it's not just about having the programs, but how do we engage all of these employees to make sure they have the space to prioritize themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Jasmine, any additional points on that in terms of what you're saying?
I really resonate with what Mirka is saying, because even sometimes when corporates, they want intervention for well-being, it's you're caught in the middle, because what they want also, alongside of the well-being of their employees, they also want their employees to be well for more efficiency. It's such a contradicting thing sometimes that efficiency, that well-being for the employee is to do with long hours. It is to do with lifestyle factors. It is to do with burnout. It is to do with time management, so many things. And so we need to improve this, help the employees improve this. And at the same time, these organizations, they want efficiency. So it's really a balancing act. It's not that this can't be done. Obviously, good well-being does lead to better efficiency. We know this, but there are many polarizing factors as you work through it. And I think, like you said, especially some things are relevant more to the UAE, such as having a huge expat community. There is so much more diversity, but there is also the challenge of finding the right cultural matches in the support that you seek. And other factors such as long hours are really normalized in this region for specific segments of work. And that's a big part of the cultural work fabric here. So there are specific challenges when we go in to work in this area. It's just one of those balancing acts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always that.
Yeah. Culture is such an integral part of this whole thing, right? Because if you look at Europe, it's just culturally accepted that you cut yourself off after a certain point of time. You're going out, you're cycling, you're mountaineering, whatever that is just such a thing inside the mindset itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also exacerbated in a way by the fact that this is such a huge expat community and everyone is here. I'm not going to say everyone, but a large percentage of those expats are here for work. So then it's really hard for work to not be the central focus. And as opposed to already living in a region where work is just a part of your life, it becomes hard to keep that idea there, that work is also just a part of your life, and it can become your whole life in some ways if you're not mindful.
So
Yeah,
it's very
absolutely.
important that the employer provides safety in terms of the job security or whatnot to the employees so that they can build this whole habit.
So psychological safety, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. And that's such an important topic right now in the world. I think, I don't know, Mirka might say a bit more. I think employers are catching on to this in the UAE, but it's something that's still developing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
And I think Mirka touched upon this, the whole thing about financial well-being, right? If you're not happy with the financial part of your life, it's going to trickle down into other aspects of your life. Yeah. And it's so important. So now this is an insurance podcast. So now let's get into health insurance. All right. So how has health insurance actually evolved in supporting these issues that employees face, the whole point about well-being, and also there are some interesting things that have come up in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years. It's the phones, digital health solutions. They can create problems, but they can also help, right? So what are you seeing in terms of those digital health solutions?
Yes, I think insurers have been all over digital health solutions for the past few years. Pretty much all of them, they've implemented some sort of telemedicine solutions. So members can call and have access to a doctor from the phone, which is great. All of them have started to introduce employee assistance programs. So mental health solutions available through apps or even in-person counseling in person, but very much facilitated through applications as well. We have seen several insurers launch well-being platforms and to promote physical health, mental health, meditation, and all of these sort of things. So yes, I think that there has been a lot. Now, what the struggle with this is that digital health is a great thing, but it's how do we get people to use it?
Yeah.
And actually, I have a good friend of mine. She's a behavioral scientist, and she works a lot with digital health providers. And she recently posted something on LinkedIn when she said most products don't fail because of bad tech. They fail because they're built without understanding how people behave. So what I see is that we have a lot of solutions, we have a lot of services, but this does not mean that people are going to have attention span or we already have a very limited attention span. We barely can read anymore.
Vacation has happened. Yeah.
But yes, this said, there's a lot out there, a lot that can be done. I think that also in terms of the digital health solutions, what users are perhaps struggling with is the fact that the experience is not necessarily personalized or individualized, particularly around the teleconsultation services. It's very difficult to overcome. If you have a doctor that you like to talk to, you would like to talk to that doctor all the time. And sometimes through the digital health solutions or mental health solutions, it's not always possible. Sometimes it is not. So I think there's also that personalized experience for members, perhaps.
Do insurance companies actually pay for these digital health solutions? Is that how you're seeing now?
Yes. Most of them, international insurers, regional insurers, they would have some offering around digital well-being. Not all of them, but most of them.
Got it.
True. And for you, Jasmyn, for startups like yourself in the health insurtech space, what are the key factors to break through successes, convince an insurer or a broker like Mirka? And is there any advices that you can give to maybe new entrants of health startups?
I think I should be taking this advice from Mirka. But no, I think Mirka's probably better at answering this. I'll leave that to her. But I'll quickly say, yes, there's a huge change in general in insurance. In terms of mental health, most people who come and see me, I'm a practitioner as well, they're getting really great coverage. It obviously depends on the quality of your insurance, but even a good insurance, you're not having to pay much out of pocket. You're getting premium services that are actually really expensive in the UAE. And now we're seeing that transition from the in-person coverage to the digital coverage, because we're just seeing so many more people want to avail these services online. And so that it's nice to see that transition. I do think there are some, I'm going to say gaps, but there are some creative solutions that we might work with in the future as ideas, because like Mirka's saying, how do we ignore the human experience? Even if we think about ourselves, it's a big jump to go from a traditional model of going into getting help to just suddenly you're using an app, or like Mirka said, in some providers, you don't even have a consistent person that you're seeing. It's just a huge cultural gap there in a human comfort zone. And especially because I come from a mental health angle. So it's not just the solution, it's the human experience, it's repetition, and it's the stability when you're going in. So I think there's still a big gap happening. So for example, these are not being employed necessarily right now, but there would be a lot of hybrid solutions. So someone comes in, and let's say if you guys see me once, but then you see me online, that's a very comfortable idea. But we don't have specific solutions that are catering to these type of experiences for the client just yet. And I would say even insurance panels, I imagine in the future, in terms of like insurance collaborating with mental health or any kind of digital health providers, there's a lot more creative stuff that can be done together to make the experience better. So I think that's still a big gap, but I'll let Mirka say, what are the insurance providers looking for?
And so from my perspective, as we were talking, actually I was noting down, if we look into digital well-being and health solutions, I think companies or startup companies or founders, they should focus on a couple of things. The first one is, how does this fit their organization? I recall many years ago talking about the development of well-being platforms, right? The thing is not the tech, it's how does this technological solution fit into the overall employee experience? How does it fit in the organization? So it's just not looking at the service that you are offering, but how does it fit this organization? And the second one that I think insurers and consultants alike are quite struggling with is actually being able to measure outcomes. For example, if we have a mental health program that runs for 6-8 weeks, a year, or whatever you like, is where are we taking the organization? Where are the employees going? Are they going from A to B? How are we improving their overall mental health? And this is also applicable to other programs like musculoskeletal health programs. If we implement a program with physiotherapists, how do we measure the outcome? And also, how can we predict? How can we go to organizations and say, at the moment, we can measure your level of burnout, issues with musculoskeletal disorders, risk of developing lifestyle illnesses, or prevalence of diabetes and hypertension. And this is what we're going to do to make it better and to bring you from A to B. This is, I find, still missing, unfortunately.
And I'll just add in quickly, obviously, I'm up against a bigger force. All of you guys are in insurance, and measurability is such an important thing. But as a practitioner, specifically with mental health, it's such a conflict. Like CBT, I don't know how much you're familiar with, has become such a heavily funded practice in the world just because of the fact that it is very measurable. But there are far more, as an opinion, superior modalities that you can work with. And sometimes this efficiency measurability model, it just doesn't apply to well-being. And that's something that I would like to see broken through in some ways. And there might be other more effective ways of, in the future, having measurability around this, such as just a person's desire to see that practitioner or seek something out or self-report. And it would be nice to have an evolution of this and have that incorporated with insurance companies. Yeah.
For sure. I've advised some health insurtechs, and I hear CEOs ask this question. Tell me, how can you bring down the claims ratio by using this app? And the insurtech founder is, sorry, I can't immediately promise you reduction.
That's the other thing. I think Mirka mentioned this term like lifestyle support, and it doesn't actually help the insurance claim ratio, does it? So it requires some creative solutioneering in terms of how the collaboration is happening to make it more financially viable, but also accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mirka, and I think going a little broader onto the whole EB space, any trends, anything that we need to know from a regional point of view, from a broker's perspective that you are seeing?
Yes, in terms of the employee benefits, there's a lot that has happened over the past few years. So we went from a quite traditional model of funding health insurance, so traditional health insurance benefits per premium, to expand to looking at those benefits from the perspective of how are these benefits supportive of all the different people in our organization, because different generations, different genders, different needs. So we have seen introduction of innovative new benefits that perhaps have been existing already in other parts of the world but not here. For example, benefits for neurodivergent, so more benefits around developmental disorders, speech therapy, occupational therapy for children. We talk with clients a lot more about female health, so infertility treatment cover, menopause support, perimenopause support. We talk a lot about this. And then we are starting to talk about individualization and choice. So how the medical programs supportive of some individualization and choice. So we see organizations asking us to replicate more of the, for example, South African models where you can set aside some cash every month to be used towards well-being activities. We see a little bit of that. And also what we see is perhaps not extremely linked to the medical, but more around the group life and disability programs. We have a lot more conversations about income protection, which is basically how can we support our employees if they are unable to work for a long time. And I think this is because many people in the UAE, they tend to live longer in this region than they did before. And so there is an element of starting to look into how we can support employees for longer lives in the UAE. So income protection is something that we're talking about a little more often.
Right.
And these are the main trends.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that living longer would become a problem. And it has, right? We thought, okay, 80, 90 years, it's done. But now people are really looking at 120 years. And I don't think I've planned enough for that kind of a retirement.
Oh, yes, exactly. And also something that is coming up is we have organizations asking about, they look at their well-being checkup benefit, routine health checkup benefit, and they're like, is this enough? How do we look into more advanced tests or early detection of some cancer? So I think this is how the whole topic of longevity is starting to impact medical insurance programs in this region.
Right.
But we're nowhere near the US though, and there's still have work to do.
Really? So I want to dig a bit deeper on that. What are the lessons that can UAE market and the Middle East market learn from what's happening globally? And Jasmine, we touched upon it as well earlier about some of the international practices that can come a lot stronger here. So can you tell us what may be that wish list that we can take on from the global best practices and bring that out here?
Yes, sure. I think that, Jasmine, Vidya, yourself, you were saying something very interesting from a broader organization perspective is, yes, perhaps it's time that we allow our employees to put a note in the email saying, I'm done for today. I may not respond to your emails after 6 p.m. Because I am living my life. So perhaps it's I see some colleagues in other parts of the world, or I start to see signatures saying, I'm sending this email after working hours, but you're not required to respond. So introducing this concept of having better boundaries around of respect for people's life at home. So this is definitely a trend. I think what else can we look for from other countries? I think there's always a lot to learn about the US, the health insurance and societal system, because they have experienced issues that we are experiencing in this part of the world earlier. So their solutions are more advanced, particularly around digital solutions for chronic health management. I think in terms of the digital health solutions development, perhaps there's a lot we can do also around tracking and monitoring. Many well-being solutions, they track steps or sleep, but I don't think that I haven't seen one in the region where we can actually support members and offer them glucose readers or being able to allow them to manage a chronic illness digitally. I think there are some clinics that do that, but perhaps it's not as widespread. So maybe better solutions for management of chronic illness, that would be good.
Yeah. Jasmine, any point?
Yeah, I think Mirka said it well, but I would just say one thing that could develop in the future here in the UAE is because everyone is also here. Look, if we consider the factors like there is an overlap between like policy, finances, culture. Where do these things meet in the middle, and how do they actually influence each other? So a lot of people here are here on work visas. So we can't ignore this, which means that psychological safety in the workplace is even more difficult to achieve. And then if we combine, because if I don't have my job where I'm here on a visa, then I also don't have my life here suddenly. And then if we combine that with a difficult, or I'm not going to say difficult, but I'd say an evolving culture at work where long hours are valued, so it makes psychological safety even harder. And what that does is it makes burnout rates go through the roof. And one thing that I think that we don't see supporting this right now, so I think we're seeing like organizations working on their cultural change, people working on their idea of wellness, insurance companies stepping up in different ways, but we're not seeing these changes at a policy level like some countries are. So some countries, they have evolving policy that is really supporting the cultural, organizational, economic change happening. And so that's something that I think we don't have right now in this region. I can see how it's a really tricky thing to implement in some ways because of the demographics. Yes, that's something that a lot of organizations and employees are really benefiting from in various countries, such as at a policy level, you cannot expect your employees or your peers to respond after hours anymore. In countries like Australia and so on, these changes are being really dramatically incorporated very rapidly. So this is a future.
Yeah. I think the younger demographic is not fond of working all hours, probably.
No, I have had friends who work in big companies, and they say that they've had younger people come in to meetings late and just say, sorry, I slept in. And I can't imagine that I would ever say that. Even if I had slept in, I would come up with a better reason. But the younger generation,
the extreme.
they think in a very different way. And it's a big clash, I would say, right now between the younger generation and the UAE culture. And let's see how that unfolds. It's going to be interesting.
Yes, and as they get into leadership positions and across in companies, politics, etc., you can expect things to change. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if this is an anecdote or is it real. I understand it's illegal to send an email on a holiday to somebody in France. Is that correct? Is there a law like that?
Oh, there's so many rapidly evolving laws that we keep reading about. But yes, I don't think it's surprising because some countries are being very specific about how they implement this.
Right. Okay, so you get very serious about this then. All right, cool. Okay, so finally, what do you see as the most significant opportunity, or let's say even threat, for the overall health insurance industry in the sort of coming decade? Feel free to talk about technology, regulation, global trends. Probably I'll start with Mirka and then go on to Jasmyn.
Yeah, I think the most significant for health insurance, but I think as a society as a whole, is that obviously health costs are increasing globally. We see already countries where national healthcare systems were a given that are starting to move towards privatizing healthcare simply because the cost of healthcare is high. It costs a lot of money to be able to recruit surgeons or highly skilled doctors and to have the facilities and equipment. So that is a challenge globally. And it's a challenge in this part of the world because obviously organizations, they fund healthcare almost entirely. So we need to find a way to get people to really focus on their health. At policy level, like Jasmyn said, yes, it's a very good point. At organizational level, at societal level, this has to become like a socio-economic indicator, in my opinion. How do we get it? So it's a huge challenge. But obviously the big opportunity is that technologies are also getting us to live longer and hopefully healthier. So there's a lot of hope around new developments in medical cover for new treatments, new technologies, new routine health screenings, then perhaps that would help with early detection of some illnesses that at the moment are catastrophic for members, but also from a financial perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Jasmyn?
I think like Mirka said, health is increasingly becoming expensive for so many reasons, like just with the development of science, but also with the the consumer having more awareness about what is out there and what treatments they do want and what specialists they want. And these are the kind of luxuries we didn't have in the past when we had limited access. I think that you guys would know better, but that makes it harder to not have insurance. This works for insurance as an end user, I would say, because everything is so expensive. I'm not speaking from like the business side of insurance, but just as a user, that it starts to feel more and more important to have a good coverage.
Yeah.
But some of the things that I could potentially foresee that we might run into is, I would say, let's say from a more mental health perspective, if insurance remains very limited in previous definitions of what they did cover, with the way things are evolving, I can see that they could lose out on a certain demographic of clients who are able to avail those services under different titles in the mental health world, but maybe not under specifically approved titles. So if the insurance continues, which some of them do in ways, to stay limited, I see this as a limitation as an end user. The other thing is that it's important. It's actually really supportive when insurance recognizes more titles, because we have higher quality, better regulation, probably tapping a bigger market, but it's tricky because it involves policy and so many things. So that's one area I would say. And the other thing would be things that we really don't know that are up and coming, which is AI. How does that rapidly change the provision of health services? How does policy support or not support that moving forward? These are really big question marks in all fields, including mental health, because there's now studies being released. It's interesting and unknown, but of mental health therapists reporting higher success than an actual therapist. I'm not endorsing this. I'm just saying we don't know the future of these fields at this point. And I think the next few years are going to be really telling. There are very interesting things in the news about governments that will restrict how AI is used until we understand it. And then really interesting things emerging about potentially no restrictions. That was something recent that came up in the US. I don't know if that's being enforced or not. So I think it's very hard to predict, and insurance is going to be heavily impacted by how this unfolds.
Yeah, for sure. It would be wonderful if you could have a personalized therapist in your pocket who knows everything about you. But obviously, there are downside risks of hallucinations, stuff like that. So I'm very,
Jasmyn is popping up.
I want to be very appreciative that we avoided talking about AI till the last question. Amazing. Usually we take up AI almost in the first when we have another panel.
I think unless you're an expert, it's in AI, it's also just a very gray area. Go on and on in any direction. We really just don't know as well at this point. It's one of those to say we just don't know.
Absolutely. So that kind of brings us closer to the end of the podcast. Any place where, any final call outs or actions for our audience that you want to talk about, or where can our audience reach you, or if you want to, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
You go first.
Yes, from my perspective, everyone can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Mirka Strano, and yes, I'm happy to connect to all people interested in the topic of health insurance, well-being, and health. I'm very passionate about it. So yes, happy to connect with anybody who would want to connect.
Great. I can also be found on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the easiest platform. I'm also a practitioner here in the UAE. I'm also working with Minty on their mental health platform. I also have a bit of a mental health podcast situation going on.
Okay.
So and happy to connect as well.
Very good.
Nice.
Excellent. So that was great. Thank you both for this insightful discussion on health and wellness, and very happy to host you both here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.